The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a strange feeling, like the air was too quiet, like something important had already shifted without anyone noticing. Sunlight filtered through the curtains of my childhood bedroom, casting pale stripes across the walls that were still covered with posters from my teenage years. My phone buzzed with messages from cousins, friends, and distant relatives who were already on their way to the venue. Everyone was excited. Everyone thought today was the beginning of a perfect life for me. But I wasn't excited. I was terrified. My parents had planned this wedding for 2 years. They chose the venue, the guest list, the menu, even the music. They chose my dress. They chose the photographer. They chose my fiancé. I barely chose anything. Ethan looked perfect on paper. He came from a respected family, had a stable career in finance, and spoke politely at dinners. He was the kind of man my parents dreamed of introducing to their friends. They said he was my future, my security, my chance to live a comfortable life. They said love would grow later. I believed them, at least at first, but somewhere along the way, I started noticing the gaps, the way Ethan avoided talking about anything emotional, the way he talked about our future like a business plan, not a shared dream, the way my parents talked about him like a trophy, not a partner, and the way no one ever asked what I wanted. 2 weeks before the wedding, I found an email on Ethan's laptop while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for a photo he had asked me to send to the planner. The subject line caught my attention. After the marriage, we proceed. The email was from his business partner. It described a merger that depended on Ethan marrying into my family. My parents' company owned valuable property and patents, and the marriage would give Ethan's firm certain rights through legal ties and future inheritance. It was written in clean, cold language. No mention of love, no mention of me as a person, just as a bridge. My hands shook as I read every line. I confronted Ethan that night. He didn't deny it. He just sighed like I had asked something inconvenient. "That's how things work in our world," he said calmly. "It doesn't mean I won't be good to you." Good to me, like a contract. When I told my parents, they reacted exactly how I feared. They didn't care. "Marriage is also business," my father said. "You'll be safe, you'll be rich, you'll be respected," my mother added. "Love is optional." Optional. That word haunted me. So I stopped arguing. I smiled. I tried on the dress. I attended the rehearsal dinner. I let them believe I had accepted everything. But inside, I was planning something else. Not revenge, not drama, just truth. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to my parents' voices downstairs as they discussed seating arrangements and future investments. My life was being negotiated like a contract. I felt invisible. At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and began writing. I wrote emails, scheduled posts, gathered documents, and prepared files that had been sitting quietly in my personal drive for years. My parents thought I was naive, but I'd grown up in boardrooms and law offices. I knew how things worked. I knew where the skeletons were buried. Not crimes, but secrets, loopholes, manipulations that looked legal on paper, but would raise questions if exposed. By sunrise, my plan was ready. The wedding venue was breathtaking, white roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a live orchestra. Guests arrived in luxury cars. My mother cried when she saw me in my dress. My father hugged me like he was sealing a deal. Ethan waited at the altar, smiling confidently. When the music started, I walked down the aisle slowly, feeling every step. People whispered about how lucky I was, how beautiful, how perfect. When I reached the front, the officiant began the ceremony. Everything went smoothly for 10 minutes. Then Just as he asked if anyone objected, the lights flickered. At first, people thought it was a technical issue. Then the giant screen behind us turned on. My scheduled presentation began to play. It wasn't dramatic, no yelling, no insults, just a calm, narrated slideshow of facts. Emails, contracts, recorded conversations, legal documents showing how my parents arranged the marriage for corporate gain, proof of Ethan's agreement, evidence that my inheritance had already been structured into business deals without my consent. The room went silent. My mother's face turned pale. My father stood up, shouting at the technicians. Ethan tried to grab my hand, but I stepped back. "I'm not canceling the wedding," I said into the microphone. "The truth is canceling it." People stared, phones recorded, lawyers in the audience exchanged looks. I walked away before anyone could stop me. By the time I reached my car, my phone was exploding with notifications. The live stream went viral. News outlets picked it up within hours. Social media was debating ethics, parental control, arranged marriages, and corporate power. But the real shock came later. 3 days after the wedding that never was, my parents' lawyer called me. His voice was formal, cautious. "We need to discuss some serious legal consequences," he said. Apparently, my presentation had triggered investigations into my parents' corporate practices. Nothing illegal enough for jail, but enough to scare investors. Partners began to withdraw. Deals froze. Ethan's merger collapsed. His firm lost millions in projected value overnight. My parents were furious. They accused me of betrayal, of destroying the family reputation, of ruining years of work. But for the first time, they couldn't control the narrative. I didn't respond emotionally. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I simply told the lawyer, I never agreed to be a business asset. I exposed the truth. He paused. Then he said something unexpected. "You have leverage now." Leverage. I had never thought about power in those terms, but suddenly everyone did. My parents tried to negotiate with me. Ethan tried to call me, text me, apologize, explain. Investors asked for private meetings. Media wanted interviews. I declined everything. Instead, I moved to a small apartment in another city. I started a quiet life. I took a job at a nonprofit that helped young people escape forced marriages and corporate pressure. I started therapy. I learned what silence felt like when it wasn't oppressive. Months passed. One evening, my mother called me directly, not through lawyers, not through assistants. Her voice was tired. "We never thought you'd do that," she said. "I never thought you'd treat me like property," I replied. There was a long pause. "We're facing lawsuits," she admitted. "Not criminal, but complicated. We need your cooperation." I thought about it. I could demand money, public apologies, shares, control. But I didn't. "I'll cooperate," I said, "if you publicly admit what you did and fund an independent trust for people forced into marriages for business or social reasons." She hesitated. Then she agreed. The announcement went public a week later. My parents issued a statement admitting their mistakes. The trust was launched. Donations poured in from people who felt seen for the first time. Ethan never called again. The lawyer still calls sometimes, but now his tone is different, respectful, careful. The wedding didn't just cancel, it exposed a system. It shifted power. It forced conversations people were afraid to have. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had stayed silent. I would be living in a beautiful house, wearing expensive clothes, attending corporate dinners, while slowly disappearing. Instead, I chose chaos, and in that chaos, I found myself. People ask if I regret it. I don't. The wedding canceled itself, but my life finally began.